Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on Women Talk. Our topic of discussion today is the big D, divorce. My name is Deborah Henry.
And my name is Zoraya Vadillo. Thank you so much for joining us again on another episode. And let me introduce our two fantastic guests. We have Sue Lim, a Pilates instructor and a mother of 4, who's also been through a divorce herself, so we'll be speaking a little bit about her story later on. And I'd also like to introduce Nursahila Ayub, a prominent Sharia lawyer who has dealt with a lot of divorces. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
So we have a very interesting topic today, divorce, something that sometimes has been characterized as being taboo in this country, but something that actually happens a lot more often than we expect.
And also I think breaking down the stigma attached to it, right? It's actually more common than we know, but it can be very scary at times. Yeah. So what is there to it?
Yeah, what was your story, Sue?
In a marriage that I didn't want to, you know, I've been married for about 12 years at this point, and I decided to get a divorce. But when he gave me the talak, I ended up, you know, because for those of you who don't know me, I'm not Malaysian, I'm an Chinese American, but I follow the Sharia rules, and this was something I was actually not familiar with when I got a divorce, because who would have thought, when you get married, you never thought you would have gotten a divorce.
It's the last thing in your mind.
Exactly. Yeah, so actually when I got my divorce, I was a bit clueless as to my rights. I didn't know, you know, I was a bit clueless to my rights, but also on top of it, I actually didn't care at that point because I was very emotional. I just wanted out of the marriage. I didn't want to claim anything. I didn't want to claim any property or whatnot. But thinking back at it, I wish I really knew what my rights were at the time.
And also, because it's not spoken about, no one wants to talk about or air their dirty laundry.
Right.
So we never hear about the processes that other people have gone through in their divorce. It's always just, oh, it's messy, but we don't actually discuss it. Maybe. Is it because people are embarrassed to talk about it, or what was your experience?
In my experience, yeah, definitely I was embarrassed to talk about it because it was something pretty shameful. I felt like I felt like a failure, you know?
Oh, really?
I felt like, okay, I decided that I didn't want this marriage anymore, and I think above anything, I was actually more concerned about how am I gonna tell my kid? I was so embarrassed about getting the divorce. I didn't tell anyone, or I didn't speak much about it, only to my close friends. But I've learned throughout the years that people were like, "Oh my God, like
you too?
Yeah, or that's amazing. You got a divorce. I want to." I want to say, yeah, you're so strong, you're so brave, which I felt kind of like, I could see why they said that, but at the same time, I
didn't feel that way,
no.
So you just didn't want to open up about it. And I think that's so normal, as many women actually don't want to talk about it because they feel that, like you said, shame, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about, like, what are the reasons, well, to see the number increase in the cases, but also what are the top reasons that push individuals to actually ask for divorce or want the divorce. We're going to take a quick break. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to Women Talk. We're talking about the big D, but actually it's not such a big deal anymore.
No.
There are so many reasons why people get divorced, and you know what, it's okay. But we want to find out what are the main top reasons, especially with the cases we're seeing nowadays.
Yeah.
So basically, based on my 7 years of practice, I can see that the main reason for divorce is financial problem.
Oh,
that's
really?
the first thing. Yeah,
that's interesting.
But then that's the main reason. But then the financial problem can lead to other reasons, such as like domestic violence, or maybe communication breakdown, or third parties like cheating. So it can cause other problems, especially in this pandemic era where we know that most people are affected because of the pandemic. Some lose their jobs, some got reduced in their pay. So there are cases actually that was filed because the husband lose the job. because of the pandemic. So the wife cannot stand that kind of life anymore. So the wife filed divorce in the court.
So over the course of the pandemic, we've seen 80,000 cases of divorce. Has that gone up from normal?
Yes, actually it's more than normal before the pandemic actually. And I even received inquiry regarding divorce cases during the first day of Hari Raya in 2020.
Wow.
Because of domestic violence and because of course, financial. That's the main reason. But there are also others reasons such as abuse. And previously we thought that abuse is like physical abuse. You can see blood, you can see bruises. But then nowadays, most of the cases they file divorce because of mentally and psychologically abuse.
It's amazing how pressure or stress, as you mentioned, on a family, on a couple, can actually bring about a disastrous outcome. I mean, it would lead to divorce. So it makes me wonder, like, are couples taught how to deal with stresses, like as you mentioned, financial stress? And it brings me to the point on communication. Do you advise the couples on better communication? How do you reach out to your spouse if there is a stress in your relationship?
Usually, if both couples come and reach for me and they want not counseling, because I'm not a certified counselor, but I can help them go through the legal aspect. But I can say that usually only the wife come. The husband doesn't come. Yeah, the husband in denial. They don't think that it's a big
Nothing's
problem.
Wrong. Or
Nothing
not a big
wrong.
Deal.
From them, this one couple, they're already 60 something. So the husband said that it's not a problem. You have to deal with me. You're married with a hard person. So you have to deal with me.
Accept me for what I am.
Yeah, accept me, because why you can accept me before this and why now you want to file for divorce? So that's what the husband said. And they're only in their 60s.
So when it comes to divorce, at what point do you think that you should realize it's time for a divorce? And at what point is it, okay, we can try and fix it? What was that?
Well, that's a scary thing because you always want to keep trying, right?
Yes.
And you have to at some point go, okay, I've tried enough.
So the history from my marriage is that I was married for a total of 12 years. 5 years into the marriage, she got a second wife. For 6 years plus, I dealt with a polygamous marriage. So every other day, he went back and forth to the other wife's house. I definitely was not raised to prepare for such a situation. So obviously, I was probably going mentally mad because I was just not used to that. And then what happened was that the pressure was a lot on him because, again, finances, because now he had 2 wives. So a lot of that played through my mind. I went through counseling because, again, he didn't want to, because he thought that, you know what, that's your problem if you can't handle me having a second wife, and that's your problem if you can't be a submissive wife.
And did he care if you stayed or left?
He did. I think out of pride, he wanted me to stay because he wanted that title of I have 2 wives. So eventually, I pushed for it. Yes, I did, for a divorce. But what was the end of it? Like, what kind of woke me up? Well, no, what woke me up was the fact that I think my mom found out that I was getting abused, and she just she was in shock. She was disappointed with me, and I think her disappointment in me made me feel so upset about everything that I actually woke up, and she actually gave me a quick talk to say, you know what, I never raised you like this. I didn't know. I told you not to, accept such a situation. And then what was the turning point was that she asked me, what happens if your kids were in this situation?
What would you want for them?
What would you want for them? What and how could you allow this to happen in your household with them seeing this? Because my kids were seeing it happen.
But then that's the thing, right? You when you're going through something so traumatic or so difficult and you're dealing with so much at the same time, you need a support system. You need someone from the outside to look in and see it for what it is.
Right. Did I want to be a good mother? Yes, I did.
And to lead by example, you needed to walk the talk, right?
Correct.
To show your children what doing the right thing means, right?
So that was the turning point. I mean, it's hard to decide at what line do you draw. It's really hard, and
But
it's different
good
for
having
everyone.
someone like a mother, a mentor, someone in your life that kind of leads you in that direction.
Exactly. Well, I just want to turn our attention to a Malaysian celebrity, a singer, and she went through divorce, I believe, a few years ago, and she's going to share her story with us.
Oh Tuhanku, kepadamu ku pohon ampun, doa restu, lindungilah daku yang tidak berdaya di bumi ini.
Coming from a person who's been divorced twice, coming from my own experience, I feel like it is necessary when you cannot communicate anymore and you cannot improve things. Sometimes you feel you can try as much as you can, as much as you want to improve things, but if the other party does not open his heart or her heart, it's going to be very difficult and very toxic. And you do not want to be in a toxic relationship, especially when you have children. And I keep on saying to people, nasib baik I don't have children, nasib baik. But in my heart, sometimes I feel like, oh, why didn't I have children? Now I'm almost 50, maybe I can have someone to take care of me, or we can have, kids or whatever, right? Especially when I see my friends having children and they're just so happy. But I've learned to come to terms with that, and I feel like I have enough love to share with a lot of people out there, not just kids. And the decision came from me being not comfortable in my own skin. I had to pretend to be somebody else, and I was just so unhappy. And that's why I think divorce is necessary. Now, there's this thing called the fast track in Mahkamah Sharia. It's just as easy as going in, giving your IC and your application, blah, 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 go in front of Hakim and just say it, It's as easy as that. So there are pros and cons. People will be like, it's easy to kahwin and just divorce when you have a problem. But I cannot stress how important it is to try as hard as you can, because the reason why you guys got married in the first place is because there must be a reason why. Must be a lot of love. But if you don't have love anymore and you feel like you're doing harm to the other person, and if it's hurting each other and destroying your own life.
So this is the thing, right? It's being married is something you want to last forever. It's meant to be eternal. But what happens when then you start seeing the signs, right? And knowing you tried, you've reached a point now where you need to think about walking away for something. To preserve, as you mentioned earlier, right, your own mental well-being. But if you have children involved, essentially it's also their mental well-being, what's in the best interest for them.
How did you balance that?
Yeah.
I mean, you're so strong and you're such an amazing mother as well.
Oh, thanks. It's really hard. It's really hard because I always try to encourage people that when you are going through a divorce, it's between you and this other spouse. It's between you and the partner, ex-partner. Has nothing to do with the children.
That's important.
So I think the hardest bit about divorcing is actually abstaining from bad-mouthing the other person. That is the hardest.
And so important.
So important, because the thing is, kids don't know any better.
Exactly.
They don't, and they're very innocent, and they don't know what's normal, abnormal. You are actually creating normality for them. So you sit there and bad talk about, about the father, the mother. It's very toxic for them. And again,
sometimes they can be weaponized, right?
Yes.
It's like the relationship with the children gets weaponized against the other person. It's so unfair for the child.
It's very unfair for the child, and it becomes very detrimental for them, because it could possibly lead them to depression. It's a very dark place, right? And
Nursahila, what about parental alienation? Because I have friends, and you see when they go through divorces, the kids are used as you said, weaponized, and they're used as these tools back and forth. And also then a parent will go like, I'm mad at you today, no kids. No kids for the weekend. Oh, today's your day, sorry, I'm busy. And so you see all of this play out, and I just feel my heart breaks for the children at the end of the day. How do you, it happens though, right? Within the legal system as well. People don't adhere to custody and such things.
Yeah, sometimes even though they file the case in the court and the court already give the judgment where, for example, like the mother get the child custody, so the father only get the visitation rights or the overnight rights. But then it's just on paper. Because some, not all, but some of the parents who get the custody, they always avoid the other parties who doesn't get the child custody to know with lots of excuses. Maybe they got something, so they cannot meet the children. So even though we as a lawyer, we help them, we advise the client, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Yeah. They just do on their own way.
Do what they want.
So what is then what about enforcement? I always find like the laws are there, and then you just get so frustrated because then enforcement is impossible, almost impossible.
But we will continue speaking about this topic when we come back from the commercial break.
Divorce is necessary when, number one, you are always screaming at each other in front of your children at home, and every time you meet, you can't say anything nice to each other, you know. There's nothing to look forward to. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, don't divorce, think of the children. But you do not want your children to see this kind of environment and make them think like, oh, this is marriage. Because they're going to grow up thinking, oh, screaming at each other and all that is normal. It's not normal. So better you divorce, because who knows, you can be better friends and, you know, raise your children in a better environment.
If it comes to wanting to get a divorce, how does one go about that, especially as a woman in Sharia and civil court?
Okay, usually, firstly, if the client comes to me to consult regarding divorce cases, how to apply divorce in the court, firstly, I will ask them whether you want to get divorced or you want to fix the marriage. Okay, if you want to get divorced, I can help you to apply divorce cases in the Sharia court or in the Sharia court, obviously. But then if you want to fix the marriage, I ask them, maybe you can go for marriage counselling first, and then we'll see after that what will happen. So if the client really want to get divorced, firstly, I will ask whether your husband agrees or not, because it will determine the case whether it's a contested divorce or uncontested divorce, because the procedure for both cases is different. For example, in the civil case.
Well, so that's the thing, right? The divorce part is the easy part. It's the alimony, it's the settlement. That's the part
Everything
where
that comes after.
Yeah, if it's amicable, you're done and you can move on with life. But if it's not, and you've got kids and you're having to settle property and ownership, it can drag on. And so I think of Ivanka Trump's comment, you know, maybe not the best example, but she's like, don't get even, get everything, you know. But that's scary, and it's scary for the mental health of especially the woman if you're dragged years and years and years and years.
And you're dragging your whole family along with you. Certainly not. I also wanted to ask, why is there this misconception that women cannot ask for divorce? You're the best person to ask.
Okay, because some guys, I don't say everyone, not all husbands. Some husbands, they say that, okay, you're a wife, you need to follow. You need to follow because divorce in Islam is not
celebrated.
So, but then that's why using that reason or using that excuse, the husband always abused the wife using the same excuses. So, but then if the wife know their rights in the legal aspect, actually the wife can still file divorce cases even though the husband doesn't agree to the divorce, actually.
It's so important to know that. I mean, you were saying knowing what your rights are.
Correct, yeah, because then otherwise it plays around and you don't know what you can do, what you can't do. And a lot, like when you're going through something so hard, a lot of emotions are involved, so a lot of things get clouded. So you don't know, you want to know your rights. If you don't know your rights, or if you know you're in that emotional state, like you said, it's good to have. So my parents are not Muslim, so they don't actually know rules or whatever. You know, I had actually a close friend who actually thought was my brain in the whole thing. So
sometimes you need a
you need
brain.
somebody that has a brain that's like, no, you're gonna do it this way. Because even though, like, because with me, I just wanted to let it go. I just didn't want to be like, you know what? I don't want anything. You know.
So having gone through it and knowing what you know now,
I think we forget the power of other female relationships and human interactions and sharing experiences, because the more we speak about these topics, the more we actually feel that we have a freedom and an ability to be able to make these difficult decisions not alone.
And just finally, to the ladies out there, you know, we are coming out of the pandemic. It has been a very, like we said earlier, the stress of many things on many of us, to share with people watching at home. If they are in the situation or they know someone who's in that situation, what would you like to say to them?
Firstly, you have to know your rights. If you know someone that in the situation in the problematic marriage and want to go out from the marriage, firstly, they can ask help from professional help, like lawyers, and even if you don't have the money to go to private sector's lawyer, there are government lawyers. There are. You can just apply from the government sector in Jabatan Bantuan Guaman. You can apply there. And then you can also go to the court to take consultation from the officer there to know what procedure you have go through, and then what application can you file in the court. And you can also go to NGO. There are a few NGO that helps in the women rights.
Amazing. Yeah.
Just you have to know your right and have to know the places to go. Yeah.
Sulin, do you have any last words to say to
probably
women
the same
out there?
thing? Know your rights. Sometimes, though, like you mentioned, there are situations where women do go, you know, if you can't get even, get it all.
Yeah.
I do disagree with that, because sometimes, like I said, it's not worth your mental health. You have to know what your value and your health is something you can't get back. So you have to protect it for your family, for your children, because money is easier to make than your health.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
beautiful words.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies, for being on the show and sharing. It is personal. It's difficult to talk about a lot of these matters, but very important. And to the people watching at home, know your strength, what you feel, what you're going through matters, your mental peace matters, and protect that. And if you want to protect your families and children, often it is making hard decisions for yourself.
Definitely.
But if support system matters so much.
Exactly. And if you have stories that you'd like to share, please reach out to us as well on our Instagram, because we'd love to speak to all of you and hear your own stories. You have a friend in us as well. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you very soon.
Take care.
Divorce is a big decision to make, and certainly it is a decision that you make only when you feel it's time. There's a point of reflection, there's a point of deliberation, and also prayers, istikharah, to see whether that is really what you want to do at the point of time. But if you do it only for yourself, because if you're happy, then you can only build a happy family.
At the end of a relationship, any sort of that matter, be it one that is economic or even one that is a business partnership, just like a marriage, it needs to come to an end if a scenario has become too toxic for resolution.